Jesus. I mean, I could go make another one real quick, but
that would probably be the time.
Yeah. Good call. I'll be right back.
You know, we record from home, and he still can't not walk away. Just go, rattle one out. I say rattle because it's got to be dry in there.
Rattle? He's like Bam Bam with that shit. Bam, 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 bam.
See, I imagine it probably sounds like a spray paint can.
What is he, like, pinching the tip off?
No, it's because
I gotta make this last as long as possible.
He does it so much that it's like dry in there, man. It's not wet and moist like an average male penis. Clink, clink, clink,
Clink, clink.
clink. Hello.
Clink, clink.
Clunk, clunk.
And welcome to Strange Happy Hour. I am one of your hosts, Brent, the Jesterhead and Metcalfe, along to my right.
John Pettit, handsome John.
I called it. I knew the delay was bad.
It was great. And on to the left.
The dispatcher, Mark Plover.
It would have made more sense if I had gone left first. That way John can manage the delay. As you can see, we are once again in quarantine edition, part trois. Trois, right? Tre. Is it four? It's
Eins,
three.
zwei, drei.
Is it four?
No, no, it's
doesn't
four.
matter.
Is it four?
I don't think it's four.
I don't know.
Pretty sure it's fun.
All right, whatever. It doesn't matter. We're still at our homes. We're far away from each other. We're drinking our special
Practicing
guests.
our social distancing.
Our social distancing, trying to make sure that we are not spreading or obtaining any said germs.
Mm-hmm.
I have been cooking a lot, which has been nice.
Guess who's not helping with that, Mark?
Yeah, not at all. God, just germs all over his place. Well, at least he's keeping it in his house or Gloria's house at this point in time.
Yeah, that's true.
But anyways, of course, we gather each and every week to talk to you about the very cool video game news or interesting nerdy tech news that is out there. We, of course, can't discuss every single thing that happens every week. Surprisingly enough, this week was filled with news. Of course, right before we record this episode, PlayStation drops the DualSense, the new PS5 controller, which we don't have time to talk about that. We also don't have time to talk about the fact that the Overwatch League players are being fined $1,000 a piece for typing sex or big dick into the chat. That's an interesting read. We also don't have time to discuss the fact that Mixer is gifting all partnered streamers $100 to help with COVID 2019 pandemic. However, we do have time to discuss what we deem on this very show each and every week between the three of us individually together as a team.
Oh my God.
What we like to call the important
shit.
Important shit.
I just love that John's using the delay as an excuse to just scream it randomly. Oh, man. I believe we're going to start with the sad... No, we'll start with you, Dispatcher, and then we'll move to me and then Handsome John, because this is going to go from good news to bad news in descending order.
Oh, good. I like the descension here. All right, so
sandwich today.
Well, as you guys know, the world is in dire need of ventilators and everything right now. America in particular. Anyway, we have the what is it? The Disaster Prevention Act or the Production Act. I forget what it's called. The DPA, that the executive branch has the order to call upon individual businesses to be able to tell them to build certain things in times of public need, regardless of what line of business they're in. And currently, the only business that falls under that is GM. President Trump did put an order on GM to start making ventilators, even as an auto manufacturer, to start building things. But the problem is that GM was the only company that was affected by this. Ford, Chrysler, Fiat, nobody else was really called upon to try to do anything about this. So it was kind of a curious thing.
To be fair.
Like, was anybody else really going to step up or try to do anything? What was that?
Ford has already started building ventilators.
Yeah.
Which is probably why they didn't need to be pressured.
Right. So,
what about Ferrari? I'm just kidding.
See, I tried typing.
That was a movie
DPAC.
joke, folks. Ford versus Ferrari.
It was. It was
See,
a
I
good
haven't seen
movie.
it
You should
yet.
watch it, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, totally 100%.
Oh, Defense Production Act. That's what it's called. I'm sorry, Defense Production Act. Anyway, based on public need and that kind of thing. So,
Like, let me dip in that. Sorry, go ahead.
That's so bad.
wow, that's really bad. Anyway, so that's the only company that's currently affected by forced production. Anyway, GM didn't do that of their own will. Tesla, on the other hand, and Musk has been very public about this, actually. So this actually goes back more than a week. I didn't see this. Actually, no, I guess he tweeted this out literally the day that we recorded last week.
Correct.
So it came out March 31st. And quote, Elon Musk tweeted, "We have extra FDA approved ventilators. Will ship to hospitals worldwide within Tesla delivery regions. Device and shipping costs are free. Only requirement is that the vents are needed immediately for patients, not stored in warehouse. Please, please. Oh, well, he doesn't say let. Please me or at Tesla know." So that was kind of an interesting tweet in itself. I was like, wow, that's great that he's basically telling his own engineers in the company to start working on ventilators, that kind of thing, which was kind of cool. And then I saw the first big reply that came to it on Twitter, nonetheless.
Yeah.
Was from Roberto Deeb Ashore. I'm the minister, quote, "I'm the minister of economy of Salta province in the north of Argentina. I'd be interested in receiving ventilators from my province. Can you please provide me, please, contact information for further details? Thanks much."
Interesting.
So Argentina was actually in need of ventilators and had reached out to Musk in response to that tweet on Twitter to be able to make that happen. And I find that interesting that whole conversation between a government agency and a private company, or a board, I don't want to call him a CEO because he's not a CEO anymore of Tesla anymore, a board member of Tesla.
Fair enough.
But I find that interesting that conversation happened on Twitter. So not long after that, let me see when that video was published. Did you guys see that? The YouTube link that I posted in there, by the way?
I did not get to watch the full thing now.
So Tesla posted a video, it's 2 days ago now, April 5th, called Tesla Ventilator. And they literally designed an entire ventilator system, essentially. But they wanted to try to make it as reusable as they could with Model 3 parts, which are already in mass production as it is. So if something needs to be maintained or a part needs to be replaced, you can just pull it from any Model 3 parts bin that's available.
That's pretty dope.
Not to mention, they don't have to increase their own production costs or retool anything to really make anything special from this in that sense. They just have to get a hold of materials for some of the specialized stuff like tubing for the masks themselves and this, that, and the other, some basic stuff. So the video goes over how they're using certain actuators and hydraulic systems or fluid systems and the valves for those as far as how to turn on and off the ventilator system to allow oxygen to flow in and CO2 to come out. And they have like a virtual lung, basically, or a manufactured lung, basically, that actually receives the oxygen and inflates and then deflates and forces the CO2 back or the oxygen back out, that kind of thing. And they show that whole thing. So the cool thing is they even repackage it into a box, basically, that's small enough anyway and compartmentalized and can be shipped easily. But it uses a Tesla Model 3 screen to show the information about the oxygen and CO2 levels as they go through. But it shows the historical data on average, as well as what the current line is, so that doctors can actually see the historical information about how much oxygen they're bringing in and CO2 they're pumping out. From a Tesla Model 3 computer that was reprogrammed.
I know you guys are the ones with the money. Please, for a keepsake of this, I know it sounds a little bit morbid, but it would be really cool to have one of those. For
agreed. At the end of this.
History purposes.
Yeah. Absolutely. Awesome. I mean, first off, this is amazing to me that Tesla has decided to take this line up and really, I don't know, really take this line up and decide to use this as a business line for them. Not necessarily even with the intent of making money, but for doing this for the betterment, that kind of thing, without having to do or bring themselves a real undue burden of manufacturing costs. But at the same time, also providing for the public need because they've already got the infrastructure in place to handle a lot of this.
I really do appreciate this simply because, for one, Elon was not the biggest proponent of trying to I guess, help during the initial scare of COVID. He was very much a detractor of doing anything for a long time. But the fact that he is helping the company get in contact with people and getting these needs out. There's even some smear. I wouldn't say, I guess they are smear campaigns. People who are like sending out articles and stuff. I sent John one originally where it was he didn't send ventilators. They were CPAP machines. Turns out that was false. They actually sent CPAPs along with the ventilators.
Oh, wow.
Like there's it's interesting to watch people try and take him down in the midst of this. He's always had his haters, if you will.
I mean, literally, there's not much of a difference between a CPAP and a ventilator as it is. The difference is that it's constant pressure as opposed to alternating pressure. Like that's the major difference, that kind of thing. I mean,
currently, because of the lack of ventilators, hospitals are utilizing in mild cases.
Well, yeah. I mean, if your lungs have the capacity to be able to handle that and don't actually need full assistance breathing, like you can exhale on your own, then why not? You know, like you have the lung capacity to handle that or the strength to be able to do that, then CPAPs make sense. And if they can make CPAPs for cheaper or let's say quicker, that kind of thing, and can still help the mild cases, that kind of thing, then that to me makes sense. But it obviously seems like they've done the engineering now to build out an actual product sample with its own digital screen and everything like that, as opposed to just something you plug in and it just starts working kind of thing. Like they actually get medical information back from this. Like that's astronomically more useful than even some of the standard ventilators or the purpose-built ventilators that are out there.
Well,
they would have someone programming this, I would assume.
The Model 3s themselves gather data and store that information for users over time. So it's probably a similar algorithm.
Somewhat. Usage. I mean, the screen itself, like the UI that they built for it, is purpose-built for this.
Yeah.
So they redesigned the software that's running on top of the Model 3 operating system or the Tesla operating system that's in there as it is, and rebuilt that to handle this and do this specifically. So I think it was kind of cool. If you guys haven't checked it out, I recommend you see it. For everyone else watching, down in the description below, definitely
actually
check that
above
out.
Mark floating like an angry cloud.
Below.
Him. Get it? Blow him.
That's not the first time you made that joke. But check it out. It's definitely an interesting video watch. All of the engineers, like the chief engineers anyway, for Tesla actually go through a lot of the design on this, and the individual engineers talk about the pieces that they've worked on and they know about specifically. It's actually a really good watch.
What I also find fascinating about this is the fact that, you know, as a company, Tesla seems to dabble, not just Tesla. I mean, everything was the Boring Company, I think, is the overarching company that they have. Like they kind of dabble. Is that Elon separate? You know what I'm talking about. It's like what the flamethrowers are underneath and all that.
I don't know who the parent. So the flamethrowers are actually, they're Boring Company and flamethrowers, but I don't remember. So Boring Company by itself is actually, like, literally that's what they do, is they bore. Like that's the whole point, is they have mining equipment essentially, or digging equipment that's meant to do the Hyperloop that Musk wants to build.
Gotcha.
So there's like the Boring Company, there's SpaceX, and there's Tesla. There used to be Solar City, but that got merged into Tesla. But I don't know what the overarching company is over that, come to think of it, or if there is one.
Let's say the overarching mind behind it would be
Musk,
Elon Musk himself, right? Yeah. You know, he tends to dip his toes into all kinds of things. I would not be surprised if you find out that Tesla starts their own medical equipment division after this. Like, if they're gaining this data, they're storing it themselves, they're able to utilize, manufacture. I mean, they're going to be able to build a better ventilator over time, or get the most efficiency out of that. Plus, you're building with parts that you're already manufacturing for your car. Like, it would not be surprising at all to see them do a medical division of some sort.
That'd be interesting to see, actually. If it wouldn't be like Tesla Motors, it'd be Tesla Medical, or some other name that Musk comes up with, because everything else has to be flashy and cool or funny. One or the other. You've got the Boring Company, and then SpaceX. You got to be flashy and special, that kind of thing.
Crosshairs on its back.
Yeah.
The other companies kick him out of it too.
Yeah, I mean, he had similar
troubles. It was like making a splash,
a brouhaha, if you will. I do think it has a potential there, because once again, you're diving into an industry, you're providing a need somewhere, you're going to build some loyalty and goodwill for that. If you literally shift over their manufacturing towards that for the time being, because auto sales are like they're going down already. They're going to continue to go down. Like as people self-isolate and they stay away, those kinds of things are going to be less lucrative for the time being.
Tesla sales have actually gone down the least out of every auto manufacturer so far, apparently. But now that's on a reported basis. I don't know what the confirmed on that is, but
yeah,
that was the last article I'd seen on Market Watch.
Now, I'm not surprised by that because they have a very intuitive website that makes it super easy to build your Model 3 or whatever vehicle you want from them. Not
to mention, you don't have to walk into a dealership. You order it online and it's available for you to pick up or delivered to you if you want it to. Like,
yep.
Regardless, I think that Musk is putting himself in a pretty good position anyway, as far as the company's concerned, because he's doing a very good will piece towards humanity at this point anyway. Not that, like he didn't already have a massive following as it is, but this only makes his following better.
Agreed.
I am a Musk fanboy myself.
I know you are.
I'm a Tesla shareholder. A Tesla shareholder. I fully agree with what Musk is doing here. I'll agree. I didn't agree with his thought or sentiments in the beginning of this, the fact that it wasn't that bad and this, that, and the other, but obviously something finally turned his thoughts. Or
children are practically immune. Sometimes you don't need to hit that twit button. Like, it's okay. Just leave it alone.
You don't want to put yourself on Trump's level. Don't ever put yourself on Trump's level. But it's at least something that swayed his mind to the point that he finally decided he was going to do something about it. And to me, this is reminiscent of when the miners were stuck underground, and he had sent out his own engineers and his own hardware from the Boring Company to try to get them out.
I'm just really glad he didn't accuse anybody of being a pedophile.
I don't know if that's a Trump reference or if he actually did that at some point.
No, Tesla 100%. Yeah, one of the engineers said the submarine that he brought and that his engineers worked on was not useful to them, and Elon Musk called him a pedophile because he was Taiwanese. Yeah.
I'm a little concerned now.
Very interesting man, but I think he has his faults for sure. But please let us know.
Got their flaws. Ain't no one innocent in this world.
Let us know what you think about Tesla ventilators. See the very cool video floating above John now, because it's like a skull and snitch. You can't just pretend that it's not going to fly around. Whoa. And I want everyone to know that I noticed that I have my Jurassic Park poster in the background. So I have this little thing here that's for opening things, and I just think of it as a velociraptor claw. And if you don't know the movie, I'm going to recite some lines here at the very beginning, where there's a little kid who decides that he's going to fight with the paleontologist Dr. Grant, Al Grant. And so he comes up and he's like, they come at you here or here or here, right across the belly, spilling your intestines. The point is, you are alive when they start to eat you. I just wanted to share that little anecdote with everybody on this podcast today.
See, the problem is you started doing that. You started talking about that. And I had just watched Deepwater Horizon. Oh. That was the only thing that I thought about, where he gets the tooth. That was much more graphic, much more, okay. Yeah. Let's move on.
Yeah. Anywho, we're going to move on to my topic of the show. Now, as you may have noticed there, dear viewer, I have a little fiesta going on. I've got some Dos Equis here. I've got some tequila. I'm celebrating Cinco de Mayo early. Actually, I got a new job, so I'm very excited about that. So I'm celebrating that, and the fact that as of the day that you view this, I will be in sweatpants in this chair right here playing Final Fantasy VII Remake. Probably for like a solid 12 hours, because it comes out at midnight and I'm just going to play all night.
But what won't you be playing?
What I won't be playing, because we are officially in the apocalypse. Last of Us Part 2 has officially been delayed indefinitely by Sony.
Oof.
Now, not the only title, but the most important one. Iron Man VR also delayed indefinitely. Oof. Yeah, so both these games have been delayed out of their release dates. I believe Sony is smart in the idea of not putting another release date on here. The Last of Us notoriously has been delayed. The Last of Us Part 2 has been delayed 4 times already. So adding another delay to just delay it again seems like a bad move. So according to the director, Neil Druckmann, the game is practically done. The studio is currently working on the final bugs and will more than likely go gold, which means that they were on their release date. They were ready to go May 29th, which is the window they were going for. However, Sony's head, or PlayStation's head, Jim Ryan, has basically said this comes down to the fact that they do not have the resources to ensure that people are going to be able to go out and physically get the copies they need of this game. They can't guarantee that shipping is going to be there. They can't even guarantee they're going to have the copies available because manufacturing has shut down in various countries where they actually press the images onto the discs. So
See, I don't like that idea. Like you have to hold everyone up because of the physical version.
It's a weird space
in this age too, like specifically.
Well, we've talked about it many times on the show, and I'm sure John will comment as well. There are plenty of people, specifically in this country, but other regions that don't have good internet or internet at all. So the capability of playing this game without it being on a disc is pretty much impossible.
Our country alone has still got a third of the population without internet.
Yeah.
So it's unfortunate, but when it comes down to it, a lot of people do rely on hard release copies, though it is becoming a smaller and smaller subsect of group of people who need it. It's still very important, and as a brand, you don't want the game to be spoiled for everyone else because they couldn't get a physical copy when it was released. And a lot of people probably feel the same way about Final Fantasy VII as well. They were worried about it being released in Australia and other people spoiling it for you guys. And in this time of need, I just hope everybody just plays nice.
It is a weird thing because we are privileged in the sense that we live in a fairly major metropolitan area. We have all the banks have headquarters here, so that means that Charlotte has strong internet. The suburbs around Charlotte have strong internet. We may get pissed at Spectrum or AT&T every now and then, but for the most part, we have good speeds. We're able to download games. We're able to do those kinds of things, but that's not true for everyone. And it's unfortunate, but I also think that leads to the fact that they're not just releasing this game, they're releasing collector's editions on top of that. They're releasing, these physical steelbook copies. They have demo kiosks they're going to put out in GameStop. And they have a whole campaign planned for this game. And all of that is now taken away from them. So it is unfortunate, but also going to be one of the first shots over the bow when it comes to COVID. Because I guarantee you any other major release like Ghost of Tsushima is June 26th. Nope, not going to make it. Any other game that is in May right now, more than likely not going to make it. Like indie releases, PC releases, which have been fully online for quite some time, are going to be just fine. But consoles are going to struggle quite a bit. I mean, it's interesting that we are into April. It's April 7th as we're recording, and we don't know what games are coming to the Nintendo Switch past April. We didn't know that before this either. We had an update at the beginning of March, and even then it was a very minor update. But Xbox, PlayStation, Nintendo, they're all holding their cards to the chest right now because they have no idea how to cope with this.
Yeah.
Do you think that it's going to be a manufacturing issue that's going to span the rest of the year, or is this something? Obviously, it's totally dependent on the COVID issue, how many people can get back to work, the testing issue, if they can get even reliable testing down, through the antibody testings, which Europe's bought 4 million tests, didn't turn out to be reliable. We don't know how it's going to work out for us. We'll find out. But if they can solve those issues, they can get people back to work. It'll be very minor, probably, in the areas that they'll be able to do these manufacturing practices for these physical copies, and it might not nearly be as bad, or we won't, and this will go on until November easily.
Well, I think Sony's in the best position out of the rest of them, only because we know what their lineup is. Nintendo, I know, has games coming, just don't. Microsoft has just acquired a ton of studios. They're not really affected by this because most of the stuff they're releasing are small digital games. Obsidian today announced they're doing early access game, which is one of the new studios they just bought. The creators of Hellblade. Who is that? That's oh my god.
So man, you said that in my brain.
Yeah. That developer, they also purchased them. And they released a brand new game this month that is digital only. They're these small experimental games that are coming out. But PlayStation, they could easily take The Last of Us Part 2, Ghost of Tsushima, and now they're PS5 launch titles or they're PS5 launch window titles. Like you can add some great looking graphics, give the studios time now that they don't have to worry about making those release windows from now to November. You know, there's time to make that work and they'll be just fine making those much prettier, nicer, and sure to have been a great swan song for the PS4. But
Ninja Theory.
Thank you. Good God, I feel dumb for not knowing that. Ninja Theory.
I was like, I should know this. I should know this.
The big question for me is, what does Activision do? What does EA do? Ubisoft? Like, they don't really have much of a choice unless they release all digital. Now, they have a wonderful, I shouldn't say wonderful, they have PC solutions, which will help them tremendously because they're not contingent on one console.
Well, I guess the only variable that's kind of unaccounted for, just because we're basing it off of the projections that we have now, of course, you know, for the coronavirus and the fact that everything is pretty much shut down as it is, you know, to a pretty large extent anyway.
But don't worry, Georgia just opened their beaches back up.
Yeah. And Texas still hasn't gone on under any kind of shutdown. But I think the big thing to take into account here, the big thing to I guess think of it from a hopeful perspective anyway, is that Dr. Fauci, you know, the nation's leader essentially, or expert anyway, as far as this has been anyway from a public facing perspective, he's come out anyway, and the CDC and the WHO have all come out anyway in comparison to this to the Spanish influenza. Now the Spanish influenza, of course, appeared sometime around the same time through the winter, that kind of thing, and started to blow up pretty quickly. And around the summer months, whenever the heat comes into play, because most viruses and that kind of thing generally don't like the warmer months like that, they ended up receding or dying off almost completely. So through the summer months, we actually may see a dip because the flatten the curve might actually happen, which would bring back a lot of this industry and open a lot of that up. Now, it's obviously not going to be June, but I would say July and August are probably good dates to make, I would say, 50-50 predictions on now. Well, so we've only had we've only had what, 2 weeks even of like 70-degree weather. So
not even last week it was like 70, 50, 50, 70. Like,
but, that's just North Carolina weather in general. But it'll be what, January, and we'll have a 70-degree day here and there. But I think the big thing to maybe look forward to, or something to keep in mind, not necessarily to diminish what this is anyway, but to look at it from a realistic perspective of, this will probably recede quite a bit through the summer months. Now but
it's going to slingshot.
The alternate outlook on that.
Be super surprised.
Yeah, the alternate outlook on that is that next winter it's going to come back with a vengeance, and then we're going to be stuck back in the same loop. So I
need more home projects.
I feel like a lot of this backlog that we see building up between now and, I would say, June or July, whenever we start to see the curve actually flatten, one, because of the stay-at-home orders and possibly the mandatory orders that have been predicted coming into the play here, that will definitely shift things way in favor of, you know, humanity's survival here, which will bring us back even quicker. But if the virus itself does recede, that'll just expedite this list. That backlog will build up. The software will be there because everyone is still working from home and that kind of thing. And for the companies who want to do physical releases, you spend 2 months, you know, with your manufacturer trying to hammer down on manufacturing discs of, you know, this, whatever games that are coming out, Last of Us Part 2, that kind of thing, or I don't know if you had mentioned this one yet, was Iron Man VR, because that was also on there.
Yeah.
Now Iron Man VR is probably coming out digital anyway, but the idea is these indefinite games anyway will reopen themselves back up, I would say sometime in July or August. That's my optimism outlook. I
also want to take a moment to discuss the fact that let's go off of your prediction, right? Where we're going to have a downgrade and then an upgrade back again into. There's really no way that retail like GameStop survives, or that these publishers go back to the deals that they made with brick and mortar stores before that.
No, Best Buy, Walmart, Target. That's
but
about
even those stores will not have the same bargaining power they currently have. Like up until this point, it has been like, we want exclusive content here. We want to do deals here. Like you come to us so that we can sell your.
Surprised, because lately, I mean, that's the only thing that's been open is the Walmarts, the Targets, and up until as far as I know now, Best Buy is still open.
Actually,
in North Carolina.
I had heard that their sales number actually have gone. Some stores, their sales numbers have actually gone up since this has started.
Yeah, people want to spend money right now because they're like, I want new toys. I need something to do.
I got nothing better to do at home.
I mean, Brent. I mean, in come September, October, I hope you buy enough wood to extend your deck, because we're going to be busy in the winter.
It's a very good point.
Nothing to do.
Very good point.
So, if that does seem to happen, go just immediately head on over to Lowe's, grab that wood, and we'll bid on that deck. But, yeah, I don't feel like you'll see the bargaining power disappear. I think that you'll see actually them taking over certain things that GameStop will leave holes for in the market. And they're like, well, we're getting more flow for this, so we need to either expand or look into selling more premium products or whatever, so that way they could, account for more sales and more traffic.
Now, I mean, I haven't bought a game as of recent in any kind of brick or mortar store. I can imagine or I can think of in any recent history. Most of my stuff that I had bought from brick and mortar stores did come from GameStop, but I also haven't seen what I can recall as a GameStop select, like a GameStop specific special release or a Best Buy specific special release as of late. I mean, not that I can recall, I guess.
So oftentimes it comes down to supply for, say, those hard to find collector's editions. GameStop would get more than something like Best Buy or Walmart, simply because they typically have more people who are willing to spend the money on gaming products there. Gotcha. But I was just thinking of the fact that I used to buy games from GameStop because I could go in on Thursday evening for most major releases at 9 p.m. and get my hard copy and play about an hour and a half to 2 hours before anybody else who bought it digitally.
Gotcha.
I'm going to be sad when that can't happen anymore. But please let us know what you think about the current indefinite delays. What games do you think will be delayed? Do you think this will have an impact on brick and mortar shops? All in the comments, floating gracefully above me like a flying peacock.
Below.
You gotta let them fly, Captain.
Gotta let them fly, Captain.
Let's just get it straight.
Peacocks don't fly.
Terry, we need to talk about something. All right, finally, the final topic of the show.
I can tell you what doesn't fly.
Oh, yeah, let's hear it.
Treating people like shit.
Who's treating people like shit?
I couldn't help it.
All right.
That would be even in the stage of decay that we are in right now. State of decay, I should say. This economy. We have companies such as Borderlands 3 developer,
Gearbox,
and publisher 2K shitting on their employees, and Amazon. But first, we'll stick with Borderlands 3, Gearbox. Unfortunately, the way that their developers get paid is on a 60-40 basis. 60% after all the game is paid for goes to the developer or to the publisher, and the 40% goes in bonuses to the developers. Now, this is also this company is based out of Texas, and they're also fairly low paid developers in the industry, and it's very well known that they are not very highly paid developers in for this company.
Yeah,
and that's where that 40%.
I was just going to say, contractually, so, when you sign up, they tell you you're going to be paid less, but you get this 40% bonus that's shared as a pool among all developers.
What?
Yeah, and it's different than it is mostly in most companies in this. honestly, I don't really know many companies that work in that way outside of maybe you can call it commission essentially. But as of right now, Randy Pitchford, the CEO of Gearbox, came out and basically told them that their bonus is going to be much smaller than they anticipated. And by much smaller, I mean they were expecting 6 figures in the bonuses that they were going to get, and now it's going to be closer to like 5 max.
I meant
So
to tell you,
unfortunately,
John.
the studios.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I meant to tell you this past week's episode of Split Screen had Jason Schreier in there who broke the story, and he's the person who interviewed tons of these people, and he was explaining like people were told last year these bonuses were coming in and put down payments on homes expecting for this money.
Ooh.
Well, the worst part is that that's like their catch to get developers on board saying, look, we got developers buying houses out here because of these bonuses. Like you can expect this money to come in. And with this 60-40 profit sharing split, which is really what it is basically royalties for if the game does well, the developers do well. And that's awesome. I mean, that's kind of what we're starting to see more along the lines of, the way the stores are going with Epic and everything else. So, but when you have the company come back and say, well, our profits weren't all that great. We had, and what they said was that we had losses with, I think it was Alien Resurrection. Aliens Colonial Marines back in 2013, Battleborn in 2016. And as a result, their quarterly bonuses were smaller because they didn't do well. And so their excuse now, even though they were promised that they were going to be getting these bonuses, that because of their losses, they're taking more money. And I'm like, that needs to come out of your 60%. The developers that did the job should have get their 40% worth of bonuses, and you need to reinvest that talent. And instead, what they're going to have in the future is going to be a giant walkout.
Yeah, not only that, they also decided midway through the project for Borderlands 3 to move from Unreal Engine 3 to 4, which was decided by Randy Pitchford, and they decided to open a brand new studio in Canada, also decided by the upper management staff of Gearbox. And they said that those were part of the costs that were consumed by Borderlands 3.
I feel bad.
And the worst is that you have, upper level execs saying, the lifetime sales are going to be record for this series. And that's almost legit in quotes. And I'm like, and you're telling me that you're bogarting on these guys' bonuses that they depended on. They literally get paid less depending on these bonuses on doing well. So they're literally, you just took all of their drive, all of their effort, and then their crunch time, their long nights, all of their struggles, and then you just literally put it through a container and pooped it out.
And you are the people who told them last year when you knew these costs were in there. Like, it's not like they opened a new studio randomly before Borderlands 3 released. It was last year at the same time they were crunching to finish the game. The swap to Unreal Engine 3 to 4 happened midway through development, which didn't happen last year. So don't promise these people that they were getting their bonuses last year and then tell them this year you get shit because, it costs more.
Not only that, but you have in 2016, his bonus was like $12 million. And I'm like, this is after having so many failures in development that were considered losses. And you're going to take a $12 million bonus? And then you're going to have a success down the road that just is selling gangbusters. We're talking, this is $1 billion IP right now. Yeah. Multi-billion-dollar IP. And you just took a shit on the people that made it for you. Like,
absolutely.
I can't think of a worse thing you could do in a time where people are they're starving for money, and you took their entire drive and basically just told them that it's nothing you could do to get paid more with us. So you might as well leave. And that is probably, and just to get to this point right here, I wanted to be very specific because I don't want to misquote him. There were people who talked about where'd you go? Hold on.
While you're thinking, I also want to point out the fact that, did you find it?
I found it. Pitchford told Gearbox developers that if they weren't happy with the royalty system, they were welcome to quit. And according to those who were in the meeting, he did not attribute the diminished bonuses to the coronavirus or the pandemic. He didn't even use that as an excuse.
What?
So that led to an economic uncertainty, pay cuts in many other fields, but not this one.
What?
Not this one. And he did say that he hoped to get more money to employees at advance from 2K in future royalties. So what they did was they robbed them of their success. And to be honest, there's no way there's not going to be lawsuits on this, because if it is based on that's what made them money. They were expecting these bonuses. They were told to get these bonuses, and they didn't. I'm sure they could probably sue them for bait and switch, essentially, because they took money from from their portion that wasn't supposed to be touched to go to their bonuses if they did well, and they used it to cover their losses. And I'm like, that's not how you do things. That's not good business. How can I mean? I feel bad that I bought Borderlands 3 at this point.
I understand your feelings, and quite frankly, how selfish and cowardly of you to deliver this news in the middle of a pandemic when people are afraid to switch jobs. Yep. Like, what a chicken shit fucking move.
That is totally, that is the grossest and slimiest thing that I could think of anybody doing. And the worst part is that this isn't like isolated. We have multiple companies doing things like this.
Yeah.
And I think it just goes to show you that you really do need to pay attention to whose products you're buying, what you're doing with these products, and whether you want. I mean, for instance, Jimmy John's owner, our CEO, I think he was the original owner. He goes out and hunts animals like in Africa, like rhinos and giraffes and lions. Yeah, he's the guy that has people go find them, and then he shoots them with a big giant gun while they're either sedated or whatever.
Yep.
And it's like you can support whatever you want, and just you got to understand kind of what you're doing. And I know it seems kind of stupid that you have to do research on a freaking sub shop or a video game, but it all comes down to people.
Yeah.
And that people made that game. People should be paid for that game. They didn't do it for they do what they love, but they didn't do it for the love, if you know what I mean.
If you make
I think
something
that needs to be respected, and I wish and I hope that there is a giant outcry, and I hope Randy Pitchford really eats shit for this.
Well, there are rumors right now that they're planning a walk, like not just a minor walk, a massive, I guess, digital walkout at this point.
I was about to say, you mean a walk-in at home, or?
Yeah, but I mean, they're talking about not working. Like,
just shut your laptops off. Eventually, they're going to be like, so how do we fire them now?
I mean, at this point in time, they could legitimately, and if I were in that company, I would pitch for this entirely. They could union up, and they can make a union within their company, just within the employees, and tell Randy Pitchford and the rest of the upper management, guess what? You get to talk to us. And if we don't agree to or if you don't agree to our terms, then we're done. Like, you don't have a staff.
Gotta watch.
There's a reason why this industry is starting to push more and more towards unions, and both not just the developer side in programming, but in actors, especially. There's an actors guild for, I don't know what it's called.
It's a
for the game.
SAGA. It's a Screen Actors Guild Award or something like that. Association. Screen Actors Guild Association.
Saga.
There you go. So, I mean, and a lot of other companies are pushing for unions too, for, say, Amazon. Amazon's got at least 3 cities right now: Chicago, Detroit, and I think New York are 3 that people are trying to push unions in right now, and they are definitely not happy about that. Amazon wants cheap labor. They want to control pretty much everything from the get-go. And right now, due to someone who's in charge of this organizing labor union, there's a leaked memo that shows that Amazon is elite outlining smear campaign against this fired employee, his last name being Smalls. So basically, because of Amazon not being able to get protective equipment for their employees, and they're having a bunch of issues with coronavirus cases and them trying to keep up with orders, there was a been a demand from lawmakers regarding their response for the COVID-19 pandemic. And then on top of that, you had an internal memo obtained by, I think the company was Vice. Amazon's top leadership basically are deliberately creating a smear campaign against a walkout. Okay, let me get Christian Smalls is an individual who was leading an organization to create a union for Amazon, and at this specific location or city, I'm not entirely sure, but they don't like that, and so with using the COVID virus as basically a smokescreen, they tried to fire him using that excuse in saying that he was endangering his employees, which in turn may or may not be true. I don't think any of it has been proven, but with him being the only person fired was the only person sent home from having the interaction with the COVID-19 participant was the strange thing, because not only was he sent home, but when he was trying to create this union, they said that he was creating a hazard, and so they ended up firing him. And now they're doing workplace temperature checks and they're keeping up with masks and stuff right now, but that's few and far between. You had entire cities having walkouts because they don't have protective equipment to be able to deal with the stuff. And I've been in these locations myself, and I can tell you that there's very little in response to seeing protective equipment. Social distancing is not a thing. There's so much stuff being touched, so much stuff being moved. There's not enough cleaning that can be done to see all these packages being moved from being loaded, filled, put into a vehicle, and then transported. It was touched by probably 10 or 15 people before it even entered the vehicle to be transported. So these people have a pretty serious argument to be made for what's going on. Unfortunately, in these notes where in the internal meetings that Jeff Bezos was a part of, they were basically setting up to whereas Christian Smalls was being set up as the organization leader, and then they were going to use this to discredit the union and sweep it all under the rug. That was short and sweet what their intentions were.
Such pieces of
after being called out on it, the best part was after being called out on it, he said, "My comments, quote unquote, were personal and emotional. I was frustrated and upset that an Amazon employee would endanger the health and safety of our Amazonians by repeatedly returning to the premises after having been warned to quarantine himself after exposure to the COVID virus. I let my emotions draft my words and get the better." But the problem is he was the only one that was sent home from this person that had a COVID-19, and no one can prove whether this person actually, one, had COVID-19, was produced to have COVID-19, and anybody else who would have been sent home in quarantine, which they didn't. So it wasn't about that, and that's where the lawsuit is probably going to be coming from. The worst part out of all of this comes from the company announcement on Thursday. Workers who register with a fever of 100.4 degrees Fahrenheit or higher during these temperature checks will be sent home. These workers will only be allowed to return once they have gone 3 days without a fever. While Amazon does guarantee 2 weeks of emergency paid sick leave, it is only available for employees who have been diagnosed with COVID-19 or placed into quarantine. So can you tell me the loophole that you're smelling here? I can tell you, because what that means is that unless they go to a doctor, get tested, and it is proven that they have COVID-19, they will not get any of this relief fund or sick pay or anything else. And a temperature check, and this temperature check that they're sending them home for 3 days mandatory does not constitute being diagnosed with COVID-19. So you can understand why people want a union in a place like Amazon when they're doing everything they can to screw you. And then they're going to have underhanded remarks where they literally said that this I'm sorry, but when it comes to like elitism, it gets really bad when you start getting into companies like Amazon, because some of the words that they use is someone's
Insulting.
knocking at my door.
Okay. The words are insulting, and it has been absolutely ludicrous. Mark, I know you've been trying to jump in here.
I'm in the middle of a podcast.
What you got?
No, so so I guess like to jump back to not to completely jump off the rails here. Anyway, coming back to like Borderlands 3. First off, somebody somewhere is going to have an email or a chat message somewhere that says, "Yes, this is the bonus that you're getting," and that's going to be enough evidence that the courtroom's going to need to say, yeah, all right, fine, you're entitled to this. But on the note of Amazon, so the story that I had heard up front, of course, was the one that Amazon had put out, of course, that this person had come in contact with another employee who was later confirmed after the interaction was confirmed to have COVID-19. So then that employee, Smalls, was sent home as a result. Then the reason that they justified the firing is because after they did send him home, apparently on paid leave, I don't know where that stands at this point, he continued to come back to the office to try to push people, not for work purposes, but to get everyone organized for the union. Now, I understand the argument, of course, on Amazon's side not on Amazon's side, against Amazon of, yes, that is fighting against that. And this memo definitely puts that more into play, and the PR person's response definitely changes that definitely draws a picture up, of course, that they're trying to scramble to make it look like it was in Amazon's favor. But
yeah, according to the Forbes interview, the employee tested positive, came in contact with several other workers, but he was the only one singled out, presumably in
100%.
for criticizing Amazon's flawed response to the outbreak.
Mm-hmm.
And they're already dealing with a bunch of backlash, and the last thing they wanted was an unruly employee trying to set up a union because they have unsafe conditions that are pretty easily proven. And I can tell you right now, I witnessed them. Yeah, they're pretty easy to prove. So what they're doing now, granted, this was a couple weeks ago. I can't say that they didn't change anything, nor will I, because I haven't been there. But unfortunately, the in cities like New York or Chicago or Detroit, where they're having staged walkout protests for at least 19 Amazon warehouses reported confirmed cases of COVID-19, including one in Queens that reopened with a day after a worker tested positive for the virus. So there's a lot to be afraid of, and the fact that they're not taking measures and then trying to throw somebody under the bus trying to fix these things, it's not good PR.
It's not even that they're like trying to take measures. They're taking measures, but first off, the temperature check doesn't mean anything.
Yeah,
because you can have like
they never temperature checked him or anything, so technically he was showing symptoms. He was just had been in contact, but chose not to quarantine anybody else.
Right. But the other side of that too still is, okay, a temperature check is one thing anyway of validating whether or not somebody has a fever. China's doing that right now anyway, and they're jumping on top of that pretty heavily. Now, of course, somebody needs a blood test to validate, but the other thing too is a temperature check of 104 is not an appropriate way to do that. People can ride mild temperatures anyway, or mild fevers, that kind of thing, putting them at 99, 101, 102, something like that. That's a little bit more reasonable and still have this.
I actually read an article the other day that talked about the 97.8, which was like the average everyone was taught in high school, whatever, no longer applies because the human body, the human body has adapted and evolved to the point right now where we are actually running hotter than we ever have. Yeah. So the average temperature is starting to increase. So therefore, this measurement of like, hey, you're going to be temperature checked is almost, I wouldn't say useless, but it is. I agree with you. It's not a valid way to determine.
Right.
There is a medical level of which you are running a fever, regardless whether it's normal for you or not. A specific temperature is out of range, because once you go too high in temperature, your blood pH actually starts changing, which messes with all your organs and everything else.
I want you to know,
when you have like executives saying he's not smart or articulate, and go to the extent at which press wants to focus on us versus him, we'll be in a much stronger PR position than simply explaining the uptime time on how we're trying to protect workers. I mean, between pushing off the fact that it's like, oh yeah, we're trying to protect him, screw him, whatever. It's like, we'll put this on him, we'll throw it under the rug, it will look good in the end. No matter what you do, yeah, Amazon's doing everybody a service right now, and it happened to work in their favor. That doesn't mean they're heroes. And don't look at them like they are, because they're not doing it to help you.
Well, what's terrible too is what you're describing and what is being having it struggling to meet these standards. There's a reliance on these services. There are people who literally can't go outside right now because they have immunocompromised issues, whether they're too old, whether they have a medical condition, or they live with people who have these things. Like there are prominent, there's a prominent population that requires these things to be cleared in a way where they can feel comfortable about it. And Amazon is trying to basically brush it under the rug as much as possible, so that way they can just continue service as is, because they're booming right now. And I completely understand wanting to make money. I completely understand wanting to make sure you can service your customers. But you also have to take into account the benefits and how your employees are treated and the actual health of human beings, which include your employees and your customers.
All right, see, I'll go back.
The problem is those human beings right now are a dime a dozen. Everybody is looking for is getting work. There was actually a news story that was ran today saying that even in cities like Louisiana, where 30% of the population is African American, it turns out that 70% of the deaths are actually coming from the African American population of reported deaths. So, when you're looking at a society where the majority of African Americans tend to make up the lower SEC population in most cities that you're in, that's directly attributed to these being like me being down in the the basements and around the people and making the deliveries, doing all the grunge work jobs that are high risk right now. And that's why I posed the question earlier, why aren't people in these industries getting paid hazard pay? A lot of people are saying that they couldn't afford it. And I'm like, last time I checked, watching how much toilet paper went out of Harris Teeter, they should be able to afford the Taj Mahal and bail Trump out just out of toilet paper alone. But what are we to say? We don't see the numbers, nothing gets reported, and these companies do what they're going to do.
It is just astounding to me, because I agree with you. Like, hazard pay should be a requirement right now. This idea that they can't afford it, to me, is mind-boggling for a number of reasons. One, you're a multi-million-dollar company. You can afford it. You just don't want to make concessions.
Billion.
Yeah.
Billion. Like you pay out billions of dollars to your upper executive. You also have shareholders who contribute money. Like, don't tell me there's no money there. There's money there. You would just have to sacrifice. And that's what's the most despicable thing about all this.
It wouldn't even be a lot. These guys are making barely minimum wage, above minimum wage as it is. Though they said that they bumped everybody up to $15 an hour from $13. I'm like, last time I checked, hazard pay was supposed to be 1.5. And these guys are putting their necks out on the line to service your company in a time where, like, people are dying pretty rapidly. I don't know. I just don't understand. It just comes out to, like, we're looking at companies like Gearbox, 2K Studios, Amazon. They're just doing all these things to their employees without any backlash, even. Like, not much of one. Because even the stuff that I've seen, government's not stepping in it at all, and they don't care. They're just happy that things are slightly working right now. And that's what it comes down to, is that people have to either voice their opinions or you're just going to have to deal with it.
Yep.
Well, I think one of the reasons why we talked about this, what you brought up earlier, John, it's tough. There's a lot of things we rely upon, and there is no clean way to get pretty much anything today. But you have to pick and choose your battles. Like, yes, you have to research that sub shop that you go eat at regularly. Yes, you have to research the video game developer you buy video games from. Is it worth that money that you're spending to put in their pockets to continue these practices? There are arguably some that are hard to fight against, Amazon being one of them, but it doesn't mean that you can't speak out. Doesn't mean you can't do something about it. Stay informed. Make sure you're having these conversations, these tough conversations, and make sure your voice is heard. Because if this bothers you, and it should, now is the time to talk about it.
Oh, yeah.
Now, granted, I mean, what the guy did definitely was stupid. You should, I mean, if he really did have an interaction with COVID, you should have stayed at home. Just gonna put that out there. I'm not being dumb.
No. Yeah, absolutely.
I feel like
absolutely.
he should have done that.
Not saying that Smalls
But
is
he was
completely
definitely,
absolved.
obviously singled out for his practices.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely. Well, please let us know what you think about the shittiness of various companies to their employees floating like a morbid cloud above John because he's really sad. Look at him. Just look at him. He's so sad.
Below.
It's always around me.
It can't be around me. I'm the host of the show. But I do believe now it's for last call.
Last call.
Last call.
Oh, man. It looked really good, John, because you back. And I was like, oh, he's got it. And
it's
then it
great.
was off real bad.
Your camera's on sync, but your audio is way out of sync. It's great.
Oh, yeah.
It's great.
Wait, how does that even happen? The video should be something that's delayed.
I don't know, dog.
Anyways, of course, you can tell we all have our own special guests at our various homes. I am drinking some lovely Dos Equis that
I'm out of mine.
John, at a very safe distance, came over to my house and we smoked a cigar 6 feet away and brought me the 18 pack. And then, of course, some Silver Patron.
I was wondering what we were taking shots of over there.
Yeah, Silver Patron, buddy. It has to go with the Dos Equis. But what about you, John? What are you drinking?
The normal Jack Daniels. Not Jack Daniels. Jameson Black Barrel.
I was you were about to blow my mind, Jack Daniels. What do you got? What do you got of over there, dispatcher?
I was actually drinking a gimlet. Now, gimlet's usually a martini drink, but I had to go with the non-bougie option of let me drink as much gin as I possibly can cram into this thing. Because, by the way, 2/3 of this drink is gin.
Is it aviation gin?
Oh, absolutely.
Are you drunk?
Ryan Reynolds. Let's. What other option is there?
God's my man. I want you to know that
There's really not.
We've had this discussion before, but I've never had a gimlet in a martini. 1 and 2. I've only enjoyed. No, we had it on the show once, but yeah. I prefer the vodka gimlet. But anyways, moving on.
Yeah, I forget what it's called now. Keep going.
It's a gimlet. It's fine. This is vodka. We, of course, have our Discord, which is popping off better than ever. We are currently using Discord right now to see each other's faces as we record. But you can talk to any number of people. We're playing all kinds of games, including Animal Crossing, League of Legends, Vagrant, which is the new beta that came out for the League of Legends offshoot game. There's plenty of people playing. Tumbleweed's in there. Jaeger himself, of course, Dylan Sanat, who is very sad this week. You'll have to watch the monthly update to figure out why. But tons of people there. For your weekly reading, IGN has a wonderful article which I laughed at hysterically because of one of my least favorite movie franchises, because the first one scared me half to death, Paranormal Activity. But it is about how the ghost hunters are using the Xbox Kinect. So dive in. What? It's a wonderful read. It is perfect for this.
I'll have to check that out.
We learned from Paranormal Activity you don't want to do that.
Not at all. And also keep your dogs away from ghosts. For the weekly Humble Bundle deals, I found 2 that are non-game related. The first one is a self-help Humble Bundle. So this is a bunch of self-help books. This is about bettering yourself. And what better time to do it now that you are stuck in your house dealing with yourself? I mean that in sarcastic and also a very meaningful way, because we all have our own issues and things that we have to work through. We want to make ourselves better as human beings. This is actually not a bad bundle. You have 19 days left. And if you pay only $1, you get 5 different books, including 7 Habits on the Go, Trust the Grind, and all You Can Do All Things. For $8, you get a number, looks like 7 more books. Some of these are better ways to eat. Some of them are better ways to deal with life, stress, gratitude, all kinds of stuff. So I am not really the guru type of person, but I do believe in bettering oneself. So I do think that's not a bad idea to invest in. And only $8, get plenty of stuff. The other bundle is a music production Humble Bundle. So if you are at all have any interest in producing music, for $1 or more, you get all kinds of, looks like up to $20 unlocks all kinds of different software, including Lounge Lizard Sessions, Strum Sessions, Ultra FX. All this ties into, it looks like Applied Acoustic Systems, and you will be supporting musicians on call. I believe this is because of the COVID-19 that this is happening. It is helping. Let's see. I'll read this later. It's not a big deal. All these bundles always help people. You should definitely look into them. If you've ever wanted to produce music or create your own electronica, please do enjoy. For some cool shit, it was a little tough this week to find something, and I'm not really one to bring up tons of celebrities. I know we joke a lot about Ryan Reynolds because we like him as an individual. However, John Krasinski, who plays character on The Office, whose name escapes me right now, which is weird.
Oh,
Ben.
wow.
Pam's his wife.
I said Ben.
No, it's not Ben.
Yeah, that was weird.
I'm losing it too.
Yeah.
Wow.
Thank you, John. John will research it for me. He's also in the A Quiet Place. He is married to Emily Bloom. He is a fantastic actor, in my opinion. I've really enjoyed him. But he has started a YouTube channel that is called Some Good News, in which he reaches out to people on Twitter and comes up with something good to talk about each week. So he has 2 episodes so far. You can find them on YouTube after you finish watching this podcast. And they are wonderfully silly. That was
Jim
loud.
Halpert.
Thank you for the love of God.
Jesus, I knew it started with a J. I was losing my mind on that one.
There's an episode where he interviews Steve Carell on things that happened during their time with The Office. There was in the latest episode that he had the entire cast of Hamilton, the original cast, come together to sing a song for a girl because she could not go see them live. Like, if you are looking some feel-good videos, this is perfect. Some Good News.
If you want to see him absolutely goofy, look up John Krasinski lip sync battle.
Yes, that too.
That is an amazing transition.
But it's not our typical cool ass shit, but it's the cool ass shit for this week. If you want to have some good news, go check out Some Good News. And of course, for Locked,
that Quiet Place 2 got postponed.
I know.
But no.
While we're locked up and waiting for it, if you do not have HBO is offering over 500 hours worth of content for free. So all you have to do is download HBO Now or HBO Go apps themselves, and they have a banner section where you can go watch the entirety of The Sopranos, The Wire, Veep, and other shows that they have on there, including some of their movies. What a wonderful time to not be an HBO subscriber, because you get to enjoy all of this content for free.
I was about to say, how many people are going to drop their subscriptions now just because they're like, I don't have to pay for it. Oh, well.
Yeah. I'm currently on season 5 of The Wire Boys, episode 2.
It's funny because you know it's coming because I'm talking, and you're like, oh, got to wait for the audio.
Yeah, exactly. It kind of sucks. I actually tried to preempt the tail end of your audio from what I can hear, but keep going.
That's it. That's the end. That's the tweet. Send tweet. Of course, we have our question of the week, which is, what plans have changed for you this year due to COVID-19? And if you guys need a minute, I can go first.
Actually, mine's pretty straightforward, actually.
Ooh.
So
I'm straightforward.
Dylan and I have kicked off with Strange Productions recently, where we have done a lot of live productions.
What a time.
Yeah. We've done one good side.
What are you laughing about?
I'm laughing because they literally did one gig and then they had to go to quarantine.
Now, with that said, I have done 4 live streams a week now for another organization, another gaming organization. If you want to check it out, twitch.tv/AGN__events. But I've been running live streams for them probably 4 times a week. But the problem is that we had an IRL event that was supposed to get planned for June. And now we don't know where that sits. And the problem is that if we can't get out and be active in the community, that kind of thing, to get the word out about it before sometime like early in May, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, I mean,
not to mention, like, we have we have other things that we had talked about in particular, especially some IRL stuff and whatnot, like events that had to been canceled and plans that even just straight up fell through because, of course, you know, like, we're not going to be out and doing things, so what's the point, you know? So
yeah, I feel you, man. I'm sorry.
It's an interesting time to try to get into the production space there, and it's not great. Now, thankfully, I've transitioned into doing the completely online stuff, but I liked the IRL events. I liked using the lighting, the audio, the visuals, the you know, the graphics that we put together for professional stuff, but it's going to be a little bit before we get back into that.
I'm sorry, dude. That really does suck, because that is exciting for you guys to get involved. I remember stoked you were, and then this.
Yeah, it happens, unfortunately, but you know, I mean, we'll keep going once we get back from this, which is fine, as long as we keep the digital stuff up now. Then we'll be able to keep going.
Yeah,
with it.
Keep the name going. Keep the name going.
Yep.
How about you, Mr. Pettit?
Well, I mean, I was looking for a house that definitely got postponed. And the thing that's up in the air now is definitely the Japan trip. Like, we know we still are talking about doing it 2021, and we're hoping that, you know, things don't cascade into an awful ending of the year to even possibly push that out even farther than where we already are. Because you never know, man. Things can get worse, and
Yeah,
very well might not happen.
I mean, we already planned on going next year, and now the Olympics are next year, which is already impacted. We're going to make our decision of what time we're traveling.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So while I am also worried about that trip, I had 2 trips planned this year, one of which happens in 7 days, so a week from today. Yeah, that's about right.
Awesome.
Yeah, I was going to the Florida Keys with my wife for a nice little trip, about 4 days. And then sometime in July, our plan was to go to Hawaii. Now, we may do the Hawaii trip, but it's hard to say. Like, we really just don't know.
Summer resurgence, man, or summer suppression. I'm talking about it.
Yeah, no summer resurgence. Repression.
Summer suppression.
My fingers
That's what
are
I'm
hope,
calling it.
man. Just.
But please let us know what plans
So bad.
have changed for you now that COVID-19 has quarantined you to your house. If you're not quarantined to your house, I understand the impulse to leave. Please stay inside. It is not about you. It is about all of us together. We need to hold strong for the next couple of weeks. We will be good. We will be back next week just for you. But until next time, cheers.
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 It's not Brandon. It's not Brandon.
You don't
Turn
believe
it
us?
around.